We're going to do something different today, and that is to look at two different components at the same time. Those two components are the MSI motor B350M designed for the AMD Ryzen platform, as well as the Radeon RX550 under the MSI Aero ITX lineup. Now, these two components pose the very important question whenever we're building our gaming PC, and that is, does my low budget compromise the performance as well as the looks of my gaming rig? We'll answer all of those in this episode, so stay tuned. Let's start off with the B350M motor. Right off the bat, the black PCB color is something you'd expect only from high-end gaming motherboards. Black is a good color since it's able to match almost any color theme. Similar to other gaming M80X motherboards, two PCIe slots, the bottom being a Gen 2 x 16 speed and the top being a Gen 3 x 16 speed, are provided for your disposal. You're also given two PCIe 1X slot for other peripherals. Right under the metal reinforced PCIe slot is your M.2 slot supporting NVMe using PCIe Gen 3 4X speeds. You can fit 80, 60, or 42mm M.2 drives thanks to the different screw holes provided. Alongside it is the B350 chipset, cooled by an MSI labeled heatsink. It might be small, but it does get the job done. You can fit up to 4 DDR4 RAMs, scaling up to 64GB. Thanks to the updated AGESA codes in the BIOS, this motherboard can accept a wide range of DDR4 modules. Cooling is a breeze. Puns aside, even with the M80X size, this motherboard gives you 3 PWM fan options. The B350M motor boasts of its dedicated golden capacitors with a high-definition audio processor. Recently, MSI has been giving serious attention to the sound quality of their products. A rich amount of connectivity is provided in the I/O ports. The only con that I have with this is the non-color coding of the audio slots. Although you can always look at the I/O shield for the label, it would be easier to identify them if they were color-coded. Most PC I/O ports are facing away from the users, so an effort to peek at the labels would be required. Moving on to VRM analysis. Here are 4 phases dedicated to the CPU. The high-side MOSFET used here is the Nikos PK632BA, which can be found in the MSI Z270 Gaming 7 motherboard. The low-side MOSFET is the Nikos PK616BA. As both models are found in higher chipset-based overclocking motherboards, you are confident that these will help you reach your processor's maximum potential. Aside from these 4 are 2 more phases at the top of your motherboard dedicated for RAM and other components. The phases are linked together by a PWM controller, which is the Richtech RT8894A. This controller is specifically designed by Richtech for AMD Ryzen. The same controller can be found in the MSI Crate X370 motherboard. Another testament that the parts you are getting from the B350M motor are of high standards, as they can be found in higher chipset-based motherboards. Also, you may have noticed that the 4 phases does not have the usual heatsink. I've asked MSI about this, and it seems that it should have had one. MSI then told us that we can stress test but can't overclock the motherboard. Now let's go to the BIOS overview. A quick glance and all of the basic information of your PC is displayed. You can drag and drop the different drives for your boot options. There's also a feature called Game Boost where you can turn it on and have the motherboard automatically overclock your CPU. You can also load different RAM profiles using the AXMP option. Another neat feature is the Fan Info tab. You are given the flexibility to to manage the fan curves of all the PWM fans that can be connected to the motherboard. Now let's go to the advanced view of the BIOS. Here, you can choose the motherboard settings and you are presented with the usual. But the juicy part is the OC tab. You can choose either Expert or Normal. Expert gives you the ability to define the memory OC retry count as well as the CPU memory change detection. Aside from that, nothing is noticeably different from the normal mode. You can change the CPU ratio by either typing the ratio in or using the plus or minus keys. With the 4 phases provided, you can choose up to 8 modes of load line calibration, which gives you a lot of flexibility in controlling the voltage. Given these options, I have to apologize to MSI as I did not follow their advice of not overclocking the CPU. Using the Ryzen R5 1600X cooled by the AMD Wraith Max cooler, the G-Skill Trident RGB DDR4 RAM, an Intel 600p NVMe SSD, and the Corsair AX860i Platinum power supply, I've been able to safely overclock up to 3.9 GHz at 1.325 volts and the memory at 3000 MHz at 1.35 volts. I do not recommend that you overclock without the heatsink, but still, this is proof that the VRMs and MOSFETs are of high quality since they were able to calibrate voltages even at high temperatures. Using IDA64, I validated the stability and ran a few games using the RX550 Aero ITX. Speaking of which, let's now talk about the RX550 before we show you the numbers. The RX550 Aero ITX is a 50-watt GPU measuring only 155 by 112 by 38 mm. It's also a lightweight champ at 285 grams. Minimal ports are present, namely the DVI, HDMI, and display ports. The design at the top is just a simple MSI logo without any backplates or LED to marvel at. The card is targeted mainly for esports gamers and titles. Albeit being the bottom of the line card, you can still enjoy the craze for esports gamers nowadays, and that is to stream their games with the help of AMD Relive. This is one reason to go for the RX400 or RX500 series instead of buying old but more powerful GPUs. You are given the ability to stream even with a dual-core CPU without affecting your gameplay performance by a big margin. Now let's go to the numbers. First off is CSGO. The RX550 is able to produce at least 60 FPS for this famous esports title without any problems. Next is the Rocket League, with minimums producing a somewhat acceptable 58 FPS. Averages are well above 60 FPS though. And last but not the least is Dota 2. The RX550 is churning out at least 42 FPS for this highly popular esports title. Now let's move to the conclusion. First off is the motor B350M. If we're going to single out just 3 key points that everyone usually looks into whenever they choose a motherboard for their PC, it would be price, the performance, and the looks. Going back to our initial question, does your low budget compromise performance and looks? The motor lineup answers that question with a no. With an SRP of 5,690 pesos, it's just along the pricing of other B350 chipset-based motherboards in the market today. But even with that price tag, the components are not your run-of-the-mill parts. Having a high-quality PWM controller found in the X370 motherboards, as well as quality MOSFETs found in X270 motherboards, it is without a doubt that this is not something you can shove off in terms of performance. Having been able to overclock the R5 1600X up to 3.9 GHz without proper MOSFET cooling is no small feat. And lastly, the looks of the motherboard is nice and plentiful for eye candy. The black PCB and the ability to turn off the red LED lights at will makes it a great platform to build a blue, green, or what have you themed gaming rig. For those who want a white build, the mortar has a white counterpart called the Mortar Arctic. So no more compromise in those three key points, making this easy for me to recommend to those who are looking into building a gaming PC who doesn't want to break the bank. Next is the GPU. For this conclusion, we are separating it into the conclusion for the RX550 as a GPU architecture and the conclusion for the Aero ITX as a GPU lineup. As an architecture, the RX550 is targeting a niche market which possibly targets two types of users. One type of user would be the esports gaming cafe owners or would-be owners. The RX550 is a 50-watt GPU compared to the 75-watt RX560, GTX 1050, or 1050 Ti GPUs. If, for example, you have 10 gaming PCs powered by an RX550, then that would total a 500-watt consumption under 100% load. If you were to power them with 75 GPUs instead, then that would total a 750-watt consumption under 100% load. There is a 250-watt difference, which makes a lot of sense if we are talking about cost of operations. The other type of user that would be using the RX550 would be those who are looking into upgrading their pre-built PCs or OEM office PCs that were given away. A YouTuber named TechDeals tested 75-watt GPUs on pre-built PCs and he found out that most of them could not deliver 75 watts into their PCIe slots, making it impossible to run a GTX 1050 Ti or similar GPU. The RX550, being a 50-watt GPU, worked in all of the pre-built PCs he had tested it on, making this the king of PCIe compatibility. Moving on to the Aero ITX as a GPU lineup, this is a very compelling lineup for those small form factor builds. The Aero ITX will look and measure the same whether you choose the humble RX550, RX560, or up to the powerful GTX 1070. What this means is that you can choose what performance you need for your small form factor build without worrying if it will fit your case or not. With this, I am recommending the RX550 for those two types of users without any doubt. For the Aero ITX lineup, this is something you should seriously consider if you are building your home theater or small form factor PC. Now, if you didn't like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs down button if you're in YouTube or the angry emoticon if you're in Facebook. But if you did like it, please click the like button, share, and subscribe with your friends. I hope to see you next time, and goodbye.